Well, despite numerous attempts to implement a U.S.-negotiated ceasefire deal in the Black Sea, Russian attacks along the Ukrainian coastline continue. New round of talks in Turkey ended last week without any tangible results. The strategically important Black Sea city of Odessa has been in the center of intensified Russian attacks. The port city is on the front line of Ukraine's anti-drone defense operations. Our correspondent Jan-Philipp Scholz accompanied a Ukrainian Navy ship on patrol.
We are somewhere in the Black Sea, about 15 nautical miles off the coast of Odessa. Dennis is the commander of the ship's anti-drone unit. This makes him the last line of defense before the port city. The drones he doesn't shoot down here could kill residents in Odessa just a few minutes later.
I am from Odessa myself, and we do everything possible so that the drones don't hit my home city. But sometimes they fly too high and we just cannot shoot them down. When I later hear that the drone hit my hometown, I really feel ashamed.
I'm shown some images that are only a few weeks old. Here the anti-drone unit shoots down a Russian Shahed drone. The ship's captain tells me that the drones usually take off from the occupied Crimean Peninsula or from the Russian side of the Black Sea.
After that, 2 hours of flying and they arrived to our zone of responsibility, like every night. They send drones to Odessa every night.
At the end of March, the US announced that it had negotiated a temporary ceasefire for the Black Sea region. But since then, there has been confusion about almost every aspect of the deal. Not even its time span seems to be clear.
All the sailors aboard this ship tell me that little has changed for them since the United States announced the supposed maritime ceasefire. They have not seen any reduction in Russian attacks over the sea.
Many military observers say that Ukraine has recently gained the upper hand in the Black Sea. Still, naval expert Andrei Ryzhenko tells us a functioning ceasefire would have many advantages for the country.
The benefits very obvious. First one, it will be open sea lines of communication and it will be supporting economically Ukraine. And secondly, a security issue, because all these kamikaze drones, all these missiles flying on Ukraine, they're killing people, they're killing infrastructure.
Back on the Black Sea, Captain Mike agrees with this assessment, but he says it doesn't go far enough.
We don't need a ceasefire. We need a truth peace. Ceasefire, they can use that pause for increase their troops, increase their ships. We need a peace, a real peace. That's what we need.
Everyone on board understands that this is not a realistic option at the moment, and the ship's anti-drone unit will probably have to fend off many more attacks over the Black Sea.
More on this, I'm joined now by Frank Ledwidge, a senior lecturer in strategic studies at Portsmouth University. Good to see you, Frank. The Black Sea ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine is not holding, as we just saw. What does that tell us about prospects for a broader ceasefire?
Well, good morning, Terry. A ceasefire is described as a confidence-building measure. There are various others. And it's very clear here that there's no confidence in either side, not only for a peace in the medium term, but of course, more importantly, in that the other side would comply with it. And as you saw there from Captain Mike's ship, Russia has been using the Black Sea throughout the so-called ceasefire, not just to fire drones at Odessa, but also to fire cruise missiles at the rest of the country, as we saw last night and yesterday in Kiev and other cities throughout Ukraine.
Now, remind us, Frank, if you would, why the Black Sea and Crimea in particular are so strategically important.
I remember a Russian friend of mine, a dissident, someone who hated Putin, saying to me, we can discuss Donbass. Zaporizhia and Kherson are obviously Ukrainian, but most Russians believe that Crimean is ours, she said. And indeed, she went on to say that Alexei Navalny took the same view, although he did modify it. And the reason for this is essentially twofold. First of all, Crimea is the gateway for Russia to the rest of the world from a maritime perspective. It's the only part of Russia that isn't iced up in winter. So the ports of the Black Sea generally, and specifically the major naval port of Sevastopol, which of course the Ukrainians have denied to the Russians, a very great success for them recently. Nonetheless, the base is there, allows Russia to open out to the rest of the world. And also, secondly, and more importantly, is to both sides, Crimea dominates the Black Sea itself, which, as your reporter said, or rather as the previous report stated, is absolutely critical for trade for both Russia and Ukraine. It's central. Crimea is literally central to the Black Sea. So first, it's vital for Russia, has been for 250 years. And secondly, for both sides, it's a conduit for trade.
So that's Crimea and the Black Sea. Looking at the broader conflict, Frank, do you see Russia pushing forward with a new spring offensive, perhaps?
Yes, Terry, it does look as if this spring offensive has begun to grind forward. There's not going to be some sort of right hook into the Ukrainian flanks, taking great chunks of land. The Russians simply aren't capable of doing that. But what we do see all along the front are local attacks, taking advantage of Russian material and manpower superiority. So they are beginning to grind forward now as the spring takes effect. The ground firms up and people can move. But of course, the dominant element here is our drones, and the weather is improving. So reliance can be placed much more on them. So it does look, both sides, rather, certainly more importantly, the Ukrainians have said that a spring offensive is on its way. It does appear to have begun. It will center probably on Donetsk. And we see the Russians pressing forward there very gradually. And of course, occasionally, which we don't hear so often, are Ukrainian counterattacks, which have been very successful locally in destabilizing some of those Russian assaults. So yes, we are going to see a spring offensive, and it may well have begun.
Frank, thank you very much. That was military analyst Frank Ledwidge.
Thanks, Terry.